Right, what have we got here? Right, it's another Astrolux. If you remember my last review, which was the, if I can remember off the top of my head, the Astrolux S42. In fact, where is it? There it is. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I liked this. However, the UI was rubbish, absolute rubbish. So it was a trial by fire trying to get it to do what you want. You've got to turn it on a bit, then it's half on, then you got to press something, but then you go to turbo, but then to get out of turbo you can't turn it off. It was just an absolute nightmare. So I think it was a missed opportunity. I liked most of everything else. I mean, the flap was a bit silly, but I liked mostly everything else, and the emitter did a lovely flood, if you remember the comparison on the end of that video. They just missed it. They missed the mark. The UI was just a nightmare. It was like something a mad professor would come up with and say, yeah, I understand that, so everyone else will. And unfortunately, I don't agree with that. So pop that to one side. What have I got today? Well, instead of the S42, now I've got the S43. And in fact, it's the S43s. And I'll tell you what that means in a moment. All it really means is they've replaced the middle section with a piece made out of brass. And I'll explain the point of that in a minute. So it's an 18650 battery flashlight again, but this one comes with an 18350 tube. So you can use the smaller batteries, I think. There you go. So there's the little 18350 battery there. If I put it the right way up so you can actually see it. There you go. Now what that means is smaller. It's smaller in the pocket. Unfortunately, that also means, look, you're only getting 900 milliamp hours. Compare that to an 18650 where you get around 3000 to 3500. So yes, you're gaining in size, but you're losing capacity. So this is also a quad emitter. So we'll have a look in the box and then I'll go through the specs. So we'll put that to one side. There's the instructions, which I'll go over in a minute. Now there's the 18650 tube. So obviously you've got the end cap there and then the top goes on. This just gives you the other option of using the larger batteries, but I'm going to test it and show it in the 18350 form factor. So put that to one side. So what else do you get in here? You've got a little, yeah, remember, don't eat, even if you're hungry. So there's your little user manual. So nice to see. If I put it the right way up, because we're not in Australia. Right. So I'll give you a little look at that. So there's all the little interesting facts. And as you can see, there's what it should look like with the smaller tube, which we're going to use. And it's going to go up to, well, depending on the emitter, it's going to go up to, with the emitter that I've picked, which is the top section, the xpg3, you're going to get at least over 2000 lumens. However, bear in mind, if you go for the Nichia, which this particular Nichia is the 219C, you're only going to get 1600 lumens. But that's a trade-off. You get less lumens and more heat, but you get a nicer tint and better colour reproduction. And when I talk about colour reproduction, I'll probably go over that in a minute. Right, so put that to one side. Now also in here, you're probably thinking, why is there two manuals? Well, this is the basics. Now I'm saying basics, look at all that. How to run a nuclear power station. So all that is that's the basics of what is called Narsil 1.3. This happens to be. Narsil is the UI. And unlike the S42, it actually has a user interface that I love. Because if you remember my Lumen Top GT Mini, that used the Narsil and I love it. It's also the same ramping UI they use on the BLF Q8, which again, I love. Now, can you notice a pattern there? Right, put that to one side. So what's in here? You get a little sealed bag, which I haven't got time to open professionally, so we'll just pour that out. Right, what we've got in here, it sounds like a load of engine parts. Right, so we've got one spare O-ring, which, okay, fair enough. Now the O-ring goes between two machine parts that have been threaded, so you thread them together, and obviously water can ingress that, so this prevents that to a degree anyway, but the IPX rating on this isn't very high anyway, and I've just noticed there are two there, so two spare ones, which is about the going rate for the Chinese manufacturers. Nice, they're about 1 mil and they do the job. It's just a piece of rubber, so we'll put them to one side. Nice to see. And here's the clip, so pocket clip. Nice to see. It is what is known as, I'll take this out, damn, that's looking nice with the brass there. It's pretty. Now that's pretty heavy, I'm going to be honest, that's pretty heavy, but brass is heavy, but it's a better conductor of electricity and heat obviously, so that's the reason that's on there. So if we'll have a look, you can put your clip on in this configuration if you wish. I'm not going to, there you go, I'm not going to put it all the way on, but you would clip it all the way on, and then you get what's called deep carry. So can you see the actual highest point comes up to the highest point. So when that's in your pocket, So for example, imagine this is your pocket, comes up and your pocket goes up to there, so there's nothing popping out the top, which is nice to see. Pretty good. I like a deep clip. Now let's just test how heavy this is. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, pretty solid. Doesn't feel cheap. Nice to see. Nice. I probably won't use that because it's so small. It'll just reside at the bottom of the pocket. Right, so put that to one side. Get rid of that. And here's your lanyard. I don't use a lanyard. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to use that removable cinch there. So that's a compression cinch which goes up and down. You're supposed to put that around your wrist, and then this goes through the bottom part, which is here. So you can see there. Just fits through there. You just loop it through, and then essentially that goes around your wrist so you can't drop it. But I'm a kind of a bushcrafty guy, so it's either in my pocket or in a sheath. Like a knife, you do not put it down because you will lose it. It's just a matter of time, so don't put stuff down. And you probably think, why is that on there? Well, you can use that to connect it to tripods, and you also get a death hammer. Now, what's a death hammer? Well, a death hammer is ridiculous. You're supposed to put, this is what you're supposed to do. Right, you're supposed to put that in. Then depending on who you ask, if you ask the manufacturer, they say, well, it's if you're locked in a car and you want to smash a window out. Yeah, okay, that's pretty sharp. That probably would do the job. But if you've ever tried to smash a windscreen, it's not always that simple. Depending on the country you're in, America, you tend to use laminates. In the UK, we use safety glass, which shatters into small pieces if you give it the right sort of fracture. There's easier ways of doing it, but okay, let's theoretically say that's possible. I understand that, but then there's other people who say that's a defensive measure. I've been in a few fights in my life. It's difficult enough trying not to get strangled or punched out or choked. Never mind saying, right, I'll just get into the right position and then I've got no extra reach with this. You actually got more reach with a punch and then try and get someone. It doesn't work like that in real life, but okay, it's there if you want it. I'm certainly not going to use that. I'm going to take that out, and I don't consider that an offensive weapon in any way whatsoever. Right, so let's get on with the actual flashlight here. Now I've had to go at death hammers. Right, so this is the S version, so because of that, this section here is brass. So what's the point of that? Well, it looks nice, and then you get a lot of these flashlight purists will say, well, it builds up a lovely patina. No, patina just means it shows its age through oxidation and dirt and things like that. I'm not particularly interested in that. Because of the weight, I can see this being more of a collector's item. But obviously there is a benefit to that. This extra weight means that this is a better conductor. Aluminium's okay. You'll find it on heat sinks and PCs and things like that. It does the job. It certainly conducts heat away. But brass does a much better job. And because of that, the step down on the turbo is going to be less than this, because this has a turbo which steps down through heat. So you run it on turbo, and there comes a point when inside it says, right, it's getting too hot, let's step it down. So it'll go from its maximum and slightly step down. So by having this, I'm using a guesstimate here, you're going to get about 10 extra seconds. Is it worth it for the weight? Well, that's up to you to decide. I'm certainly not going to sit here telling you I know the answer to everything, because I don't, and I'm not an expert. Another nice feature that this one has is USB charging. So instead of having to take the battery out and you put it in your charger, you can just charge it whilst it's in here. So I'm going to put the battery in so I can show you that. And while I do that, I'll just show you the threads here. Not particularly loud, so pretty nicely machined. Yeah, nice and smooth. There you can see the little O-ring there. I know it's a little bit hard to see. I'll try and focus. There you go. And then, oh, nice. Double springs, and the top spring is decent. It's thick and it's got two. Can you see there's two inside of there? Nice. So nice piece of work there, Astrolux. I like it. So spot on. Let's have a little look down here. Yeah, that's pretty clutter-free and clean. Nice. Okay, so we'll pop the little battery in. So positive to the top there, unlike Olight, which is put the other way around. I've never really understood why. So when you put this in, you should get a flash just to tell you that it's seated home. There you go. Right, now you know that that's ready to use. So you can turn it on and off. But what I want to test is, so this is your USB charger. Now, as you know, if you watch my channel, I don't like USB charging on models where you've got these daft flaps. I'll be honest, the bit that flaps up and you can catch doesn't lift it up. You have to lift and pull. So that's a hell of a lot better. If you bear with me a few seconds, I shall show you. So for example, here is on the road, which I like, but this is the one thing I don't like. Look, you see, that's easy to catch and it lifts. That's where you charge it. Now, you're losing waterproofing by having that. So you're not going to get an IPX8 rating, which means you can put it under 2 meters of water. This isn't going to have it, and this is only an IPX6. But yes, that can be knocked up. This isn't knocked up as easily because this bit here that you can knock doesn't lift it up independently. You have to lift and pull, which I like. So do you know what? Yes, I dislike these silly flaps, but Astrolux, well done. I mean, I'll show you how it should be done. So for example, I mean, I'm just going to show you something tiny. This has USB charging. Oh, where's the flap? Right, you have to unscrew a threaded and O-ring sealed section to get to the charging port. Now, why can't other manufacturers do that? You know, just an idea. Don't lose waterproofing by just putting a flap on at the end, but at least they've done it properly, you know. So you've got to do that, then pull. And as you can hear, I don't know if you can hear that, but listen, there's almost a suction, listen. It's not doing it now. Okay, but there is. So that's better. Not bad. Now this is a micro USB. Now micro USB, I've got one here attached to the PC, so we'll just see if it charges. Let's have a look. If I can put it, it would help if I put it in the right way around. There you go. Right, so you pop that in and then there. So red for charging, and then obviously it's going to go green when it's full. That's fine. No problems with that. That actually looks quite beautiful, that. You know what it reminds me of? That almost looks like the Eye of Sauron of Lord of the Rings. That's kind of what it reminds me of. But anyway, right, so let's get back to this review instead of going on about the Eye of Sauron. So pop that back in there. So nice to see. USB charging, I don't like the flaps, but it works and it does the job. And because of that, obviously, you're only getting an IPX6, so it's not fully waterproof. Now, here's the exciting bit. This uses Narsil. Now, Narsil, I think it's 1.3 for this one, is just the UI. UI stands for user interface. Now, because of that, it's got a ramping user interface. Now, before that, though, obviously, I'm going to have to go through how the light enters the world. Let's get back to basics. So it's a quad emitter. Quad just means 4. So there's 4, and when I say emitters, that's just LEDs. So there's 4 LEDs. You probably think, why is there so many? Well, there comes a point, you know, when once you start getting past 1,000 lumens where you're pushing it. You're not going to get much more. So if you want to go to, for example, 2,000, which this one is, you just use multiple emitters. Now, the problem with multiple emitters is obviously it kind of gives you a funny spread. You get like a flower-shaped pattern on the wall. But this one uses a TI-on. It's a pretty good one. It's very similar to the S42. So I'll go over how the light enters the world, because you know I like to do this because I just want to make sure people know what it is that they're getting. So generally, you've got your LED there on your PCB, and there's your battery. Now, if you did nothing and just left that bare, light would enter the world pretty indiscriminately. I mean, there is a plastic dome over the LED, and that spreads to a degree, but it's not particularly useful, and it's wasteful. So your other option is to put over the top a smooth reflector. So this is like an empty space, and you've got like a reflective bowl. So, for example, if I wanted to give you an example of that, let's have a look. There's the Zanflare F1, I think this one is. Nice flashlight, no problems with it. Now this has a smooth reflector. So the point of a smooth reflector is you want to throw light out. This is known as a thrower. That's one of the inside bits of jargon that you'll hear used. So what happens is you've got the light from the LED, which is known as your spill. So when it hits the wall, there's your spill. And then you have your bounce light. In other words, it's directed by the reflector and it throws it. And you get this section. So if I turn this on, right, can you see the 2 distinct zones there? In fact, I'll turn it up so you can actually see it. Let's have a look. That's a bit better. We can see what I'm talking about now. So you can see in this section here, you've got spill, which is direct from the LED, and then you've got that's your spot. Your spot. You've probably heard the term spotlight. So there's your spot. Now you can see what the problem is. It's fine, isn't it? Until you get the spot section, you're obscuring detail. I haven't even got this turned on to full. You're already obscuring detail. So I probably wouldn't use this to read a book or change a fuse or work on the car. You can reduce the intensity to get rid of that effect, but what's the point of that? So your second option, if I turn that off, is to use what's called an orange peel reflector. Now, if you look carefully at this reflector, it's no longer perfectly smooth. Can you see those little bumps? See them all there? The LED's in the middle, and you've got all these little bumps. So if we were to draw a depiction of that from the side as a cutaway view, you've got little bumps and aberrations. So you get the same basic sort of spread and spot and spill, but it slightly diffuses the spot. So instead of this here, you get more of this effect. In other words, there's a diffuse section between the 2 pronounced zones. So if I've got this charged up, which I should have, no, maybe it's not. In fact, you know what, I haven't. Oh, you've got to hold that down. There you go. Stupid me. You've got to hold it down. Right. Okay. So as you can see, and I'm going to hold this at the same height as the other one, yes, there's a spot and there's a spill, but you see how there's less of a definition and it's less intense there. It spreads it out more. Now you probably think, well, can you not go further and just spread the whole thing out? Yes, you can. Okay, so we'll turn that off. The far end of the scale is to use what's called a TIR. Now there's a TIR, and it's got a faceted top to it. Now the benefits of TIR, not just you're able to spread light beautifully, or the size. Now look the distance between the LED and how it's being emitted there. Very small. So instead of having to have all of this gubbins, what you can have is, there's your LED over the top. You put quite a shallow, in comparison to a reflector anyway, quite a shallow solid piece of material. That's your TIR lens. Now TIR just stands for total internal reflection. So in other words, the light's all being bounced around inside and then it's emitted how you want, and you can alter that by the layout of the final structure here, or you can add beads and things like that. So for example, on the Skill Hunt H03 here, I'll turn that up there. That's right up, but look, yeah, there's something of a more intense middle, but look how beautifully diffuse that is. So you probably think, well, why not just put a TIR on everything? Well, you can't, because think about it. So there's a smooth reflector. That's going to give you maximum distance, but it's not so good up close. Okay, well, we'll use an orange peel reflector. Well, yes, but then you're trying to get the best of both worlds, but you can't. You know, what happens is you're getting more diffuse light, but it's not going to go as far as a traditional smooth reflector. But you're also not going to get as diffuse as a TIR. So you've got these 3 points of contention, really. Depends what you want. Smooth reflector for throw, orange peel for mid-range, and TIR for up close, I would argue anyway. But there's certainly no, get what you want, but I'm just making sure you understand what it is that you're buying. So having known that, now we can say, right, you've got a TIR. Now there's 4 of them. Now it spreads out pretty good. You would expect this to hit the wall and have like a flower petal configuration, but it's really not unless you're really up close and start rotating and things like that. So it does a pretty damn good job. And like I say, this goes all the way up to 2,100 lumens, especially on the emitter that I ordered, which is, I did see it, just to prove it. Where is it? There you go. So this is the ×4 xpg3 by Cree. Okay, so let's move on to the UI. So we've got the battery in, and you've got that on. Now that's sort of going to give you a parasitic drain, but you're probably okay for a year on a larger battery. It's not going to run it too much. Right, so to turn it on, 1 click. And then that takes you straight to moonlight mode. Now I didn't really see any sensible literature on this, so I'm going to use guesstimates for the lumen values. I would argue that is about 1 lumen. It may look less, but remember this is a TIR, so it spreads it, so they tend to look less. So I would say that's about 1 lumen there. Lumens like that are handy for up close work or at night when you don't want to ruin night vision. So for example, you want to check something quickly in the dark and then get on with something in the dark, not using your flashlight. Because what happens is if you get that in your face when you're trying to maintain night vision, you lose that ability. It sort of closes off sections of the eye there, for want of a better term. And you lose that ability to see in very low light, like moonlight and things like that. So it takes me about 10 minutes to get that back. And you don't want to, if you're out with your buddies and you shine it in their face and things like that, because that's sometimes an annoyance if you go on night hikes or camping and someone's got a headlamp on and it's they've got the wrong sort on it and it's not on a low setting. It goes in your face and it ruins your night vision to no fault of your own. And then they walk off into the dark and then you think, oh, thanks for that. I've now got to wait before I can get anything done. So ramping UI. Let's get on with this. So if I click and hold, and then there's a momentary flicker there, straight up, that's your maximum output. So on this one, now bear in mind this isn't turbo, but this is high, you're getting, on that one, you're getting about, my guesstimate is about 1200 lumens. So see how easy that is compared to the S42. The S42, millions of clicks and messing about and waiting, rubbish. This one, you just take it out, ramp it until you want it, that's enough, let go. Simple as that. Or you can say, well, I want to go higher. There, high. And you can ramp all the way down again. Dead simple. It doesn't get any easier than that. I really, really like that. Nice to see. And obviously, 1200 lumens is massive. That's more than enough to get most jobs done. I've argued this before. I normally go for about 300 if I'm busy on something. So there's about 300. That's more than enough for me to get most jobs done, unless I'm, looking through some bushes or, looking for something in a river or something. Okay, so what's your other options? Well, your other options are you can double click. Now that takes you straight to turbo. So 1, 2, bang, whoa. So there's the sun in your hand. Now we'll put that on because I want to show you the step down. And I'll talk whilst we're waiting for that to happen. So what's happening here is I've got it on turbo. Now already that's getting hot. So in a moment, you'll notice this will step down. It will no longer be producing that amount of output. So at the moment, my guesstimate for that is you're getting at least 2100 lumens. So that's very, very, very bright. Now it will step down, and I'm just going to check the temperature here. Right, that's getting very hot. I mean, this, unfortunately, because of turbo and the limitations of LEDs, they're still not as efficient as we would like them to be. So the changing from chemical energy in the battery to light energy is still inefficient. It's better than right, there was step down. So what's happened is it's got too hot and it said, right, I'm sorry, I'm stepping down, otherwise things are going to start breaking. Now that's now too hot to hold. I can't hold that without becoming extremely hot. That's close to burning my skin there. So I'm going to put that down and I'm going to turn it off and let it cool down a little bit. And hopefully it won't melt through the floor like some alien blood. Right. So yes, it gets hot, but you know, at those output levels, there's no way around that, unfortunately. The whole thing's hot now. This is hot, that's hot. Now the heat is going into the cell section. So we'll put that down. So turbo, you're getting 2100 lumens, which is pretty good. And there is a strobe mode, which I'm not going to go in because in order to do that, as in with most of the Narsils, you need to go from normal mode to advanced mode. And I want to try and keep this a simple, straightforward review because my reviews are getting longer and longer and longer, and they're taking longer to edit. And I'm ending up with square eyes looking at monitors all day. So let's go over some of the other features. So it's got a 1.5 meter drop rating. In other words, if you drop that from 1.5 meters from the floor, you should be okay. Now, you should be okay. Bear in mind, if you drop it at exactly the right angle, you can damage cells and all sorts of things like that, because as tough as these are, they're only rating the flashlight itself, not the cell in it. And as was pointed out by Bather and Bring It To Me, which is a regular helper on this channel, he dropped one of his night cores and it damaged the cell. The flashlight was fine because Nightcore are a really good company, but you can damage the cell. So that's just something to bear in mind. And I have seen that happen before as well. So 1.5 meter drop rating. It's only IPX6, so it's not fully waterproof, so I wouldn't put that in water, but that's one of the limitations of USB charging when it's done with a daft flap like that. It's got a nice ramping UI, Narsil 1.3, I love, and this is the xpg3, so the tint on that, and when I talk about tint, that's the color profile of the output, is 6000 to 7000K. So not too bad. So it's more of a whiter light as opposed to, you know, this is more whiter. This is, here's a, just as an example, you probably can't see, but you see how this is more yellowish and this is more white. So if you want a more of a sun-like appearance to your light, you need to go for the Narsil 219C, which is about, the tint works out at about 5000K, I think, which is more yellowish. Now, that's entirely up to yourself, and obviously Narsil tend to run a bit hotter, which I think this runs hot enough on turbo. So put that to one side. Right, so I want to sum this up before we go outside and I'll show you some shots because I'm running out of time here. Right, so pros, right. You've got E-lockout. So in fact, I'll go through them now actually. So you've got your turbo obviously, and then if you did want strobe, you would go to turbo and then you'd double click it again. I'm not going to go into that for this section. You've also got a battery check. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to flash out. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3. My fault there. 1, 2, 3. There's your battery check. So 1, 2, 3. Does it in voltage, which, you know, I prefer to do it as a percentage for non-flashaholics, but this is doing it as a voltage. Now, if you know your batteries, you'll know that there's 3 flashes there, so that's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's flashing out the voltage that you're getting there, which I understand, but I prefer it as a percentage value. So, for example, you know, 1 flash could be 25, 2 flashes could be 50, 3 for 75, and 4 for 100%, like the BLF Q8. But you know, we can't be too picky here. Other sections are 1, 2, 3, 4. You get a few little flashes, and that's electronic lockout. Brilliant. That means you can't accidentally turn that on. I love that. I mean, I like the fact that this is slightly recessed, almost like a zebra light, but it's not recessed enough. If that's in your bag, hear that? it can knock on something and turn on, unfortunately. I wish they'd recessed that more. You've already got this thumb section. Just recess it, if possible. I'd like to see that, even if you do like a non-rechargeable version to save space. So I would like to see that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, turn it back on. There you go. So all nice to see. So I've got no problems with that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, lock out. Nice. So nice to see. Now I'm rapidly running out of time here, so I'm going to quickly go over some of the other features. So e-lockout, you've got tube options, which I like. I like a little small one like this, but I also like 18650. You've got a good TIR, ramping UI. It's pretty cheap for what you're getting, and you've got USB charge. The only things I don't like are that's micro USB. Why is it not Type C? I mean, come on, this is quite an up-to-date flashlight. You should be using Type C by now. My phone uses it, my power bank uses it, the car uses it. Come on. And bearing in mind, Type C can carry more juice. It's taking longer to charge than is necessary. Also, I'm not keen on these flaps, but it's not the worst implementation that I've seen. And obviously, this copper is pretty heavy. That's heavy in my hand. Whether that bothers you or not is another matter, because it's got an aesthetic feel to it. It looks beautiful. I really like it, and I like this LED, how they've got it almost like Sauron's eye there. So they've done a pretty good job. I'm pretty impressed. Narsil, massive improvement over the S42. Massive because of the UI. And I'm just going to show you the size comparison here. So there's the S42. Let's have a look. The BLF is 6, that's the SE version, which I really like. And then you've got an S2 Plus there by Convoy, and the classic S2 Baton by Olight. I mean, if you wanted to go for more output than this, you'd need to go right up to something like the Sun in your hand, which is the MSR D4. So, I mean, as you can see, that's so bright that it's whitening out the whole hand. But obviously that suffers from heat problems like the S43s. But you know, it's a bit more expensive. But if you're really after a hot rod, you're probably better off going for that, and it works on the same quad emitter. Obviously, there's a slightly different optic in there, but I like it for the price. Pretty nice. Ask yourself though, do you really want the weight of the copper? Because if you're going to carry this, think about that. So that's all I would say. So let's get outside. I'm going to show you plenty of beam shots and comparisons. Right, just before I go and put this away, I forgot to mention some of the UI functions. So I'll just quickly do that before I pop out. So if you remember, 1 clicks on, straight to moon. You can ramp up and down. There's up, hold for down. So there's your 1 click option. 2 is turbo, so it takes you straight right up to its maximum possible output there. So there you go. So 3 is your battery check. So 1, 2, 3. Beeps it out, well, flashes it out, I should say, in relation to the voltage that's left on the battery there. So turn that off, and then you've got 4 clicks, which is electronic lockout. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you see the little flashes. There you go. Right, can't function now. So the only way to get that to work again is to 1, 2, 3, 4, back to normal. Now you also have a 5 click, which is momentary. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. Right, now if you press this, I mean, some companies would call this a tactical mode. So if you press it, it goes straight to maximum, and as soon as you let go, so they call it momentary. In other words, it's as momentary as it takes you to hold the button down. Now unfortunately, the only way to disable that is you can't do another 5 clicks. You just got to disengage it. So you disengage in power, and engage and you're back on. So yes, there are other functions which I just don't have time to go through, but you can certainly, because of the Narsil 1.3 is the UI, you can go in and change it to a secondary, more advanced mode. So brilliant UI. This is absolutely massive improvement over the S42's awful UI. So fantastic, well done Astrolux. So anyway, let's get out.